Welcome. I am Hannah Swager, Manager of Internships with the Exchange, Marian University's Career Office, and today we are interviewing an alumna. We have Mallori Waliszewski with us, who was a former English major at Marian University and who currently works as a claims attorney for the Army. Welcome, Mallory. How are you doing?
Thanks, Hannah. I'm doing well.
Yeah, I wondered if you could start off by telling us a little bit about you and what your time at Marian looked like.
Yeah, of course. So I graduated from Marian in 2012. I was there as an English major. I really loved my time at Marian. I got to do a lot of reading, a lot of writing. I also ran the creative writing group while I was there and worked in the writing center. So I was very, very focused on writing while at Marian, and made a lot of friends. Had some great experiences and learned a lot from the professors there.
Awesome. What was your process like selecting a major? Why did you choose English?
So I actually had lots of different majors while at Marian that I started with. I started out being an art major because I thought I wanted to paint all the time and do ceramics. Um, and then I realized that being creative for me, I didn't necessarily want to make a career out of being creative because I felt like it would stifle some of my creativity. So then I switched to political science, and I was like, I'm going to go be an attorney. Like, I'm going to do all of this. I took Pierre Atlas, Professor Atlas's global studies class, and I added a global studies minor for a little while. And I just really enjoyed those classes. I thought they were fascinating, just to learn about politics and all that. And then at some point, I took a Greek mythology class with Dr. Pranett, who recently retired, I believe. And that was one of the English major classes, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a major where I can read and write all the time. So pivoted to that, and never looked back, and just had a great experience. Really honed my writing in classes, honed my reading skills, and also learned how to hone other people's, and got mine better by working in the writing center there. So that was really great. Definitely loved that, and definitely felt like it was an extremely good fit for me and gave me a lot of flexibility to do different things later.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like that helped your analysis skills when you moved on to law school?
Yeah, so the really great thing about being an English major is that law school is a ton of reading. So it was, I think every class, like each day, they had 60 pages of reading or something. So I was very happy to have gotten used to, the whole reading several novels a week kind of tempo. Um, so just kind of diving into that, and knowing what to be able to share and how to pick out important things, that was really useful, and just being able to digest legal work, so that you could talk about it. In law school, they basically do Socratic methods. So what that means is your professor looks at you, you hope that you've read it, and then they say, so tell me about this particular case and this particular element of the case. um, it's not it's not as bad as like Legally Blonde, but it really is that system. So it was really nice to have, super nice English professors who just wanted to talk about the books, in undergrad, but then who also were able to prep me for that. There's some writing in law school. All your exams are written, so usually, you only really have one exam, and it's at the very end of the semester, and it's like a 5-hour written exam. So it's really helpful to have practiced, doing exams in undergrad, or doing exams in undergrad that were primarily writing, just because it was a lot of writing. So it's extremely helpful for that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, can you let us know what your career path has looked like since graduation?
Yeah, so I went to Marion. I'm from Indianapolis, so I love being near family when I went to Marion. And then I went to Indiana University Bloomington for law school. I was about an hour and a half from family at that point, so I really thought I was going to stay in Indiana for forever. I had really planned on that. And then I met my husband, who is a soldier in the military, and we realized that we were going to be moving a lot because soldiers have to move every 2 to 3 years. So I've kind of pivoted my career around his career. But it's been really great. I work for the federal government. So that's been good, and it's just fun. It has great work-life balance. So I really like that. I get to do a lot of interesting work. I practice the federal law, which most attorneys practice in state law. So that's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll just kind of talk through what I did since Marion. I know I kind of got off topic a little bit, but finished up at Marion, and then I ended up working for a year at a local apartment community as a leasing agent, just to kind of save up money for law school. Went to law school at IU. Um, really, really thought that Marion helped me with that. Ended up just I kind of wrote my personal statement using a lot of the Franciscan values and kind of talking about how my undergrad experience with the Franciscan values had made me really want to go into law to help people. At the time, I wanted to practice disability law, so that was what I wrote my personal statement on. Um, and I ended up getting a full scholarship to IU for their law school. So Marion obviously prepped me really well for law school. Went there, was there for 3 years. After that, I I got out of law school, and then we had moved to Tennessee for my husband's job. So started job searching there. Got a job with the Army there, and then he recently just moved again for his job. So I'm doing the same position here now in Georgia, just kind of by chance. So yeah, that's my career path.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a claims attorney? What does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, typical day is, I obviously get up and get my daughter off to daycare, and then go into the office. Well, right now, because of COVID, I'm working from home most of the time. Um, but basically, any time that someone sues the federal government in like a certain area and all that jazz. But when the federal government gets sued, I get the paperwork, and I have to look at that and do a legal evaluation and make a determination of whether that should be paid or denied, or if it's out of my jurisdiction, then I would send it up to another organization. So that's kind of what my day to day looks like. It's a lot of research. So LexisNexis is our research system. So it's very similar to the academic research systems that you use in undergrad. I forget what those are called, what the one in undergrad that we used is called, but it's very similar to that, except it has all the legal reviews. So basically, I just get on there and I'm like, okay, I have this interesting question that I don't know the answer to. Start typing, start looking it up, and kind of just trying to craft my argument. Similarly to how one would craft a paper, and I try to make sure that I don't miss any case law or miss anything like that. The American legal system is mostly determined by case law. A lot of people don't realize that. They think it's kind of determined by the statutes, and it's determined by the statutes, but then you actually have to dig into the case law, which is a lot of reading. And a lot of comprehending reading, which is very similar to what English majors do every day to understand in more depth that law. So that's the vast majority of what I do. I also will write up different papers and documents talking about potential liability or those sorts of things. And yeah, I mean, honestly, my job is reading and typing. So taking in information and synthesizing it, and that's basically what I do all day.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask this next question. I'll do a combo actually. What's the greatest challenge in your job, and what is your favorite part of your job?
I mean, I don't want to be cliche. My favorite part of my job is my coworkers. I have a lot of really, really fantastic coworkers. As far as the actual job itself, I really like taking information and making it easy to understand. I am not as into legalese as a lot of attorneys are, and I've had people say that they really like that about my writing. Because I just I want anything that I write, I want it to be fun to read, even if it's
And
boring
accessible.
and accessible. Yeah. So I think that's something that I really did learn at Marion is, people people don't really, I mean, people just aren't going to bother if something isn't interesting. They're just going to skim it. So if you want your writing to be read, people need to be excited about it. And so I try to bring that into my legal writing. I'm not saying it's not boring at times, but I do try to make it as interesting as possible. So I really like that. um, my least favorite part of my job is honestly probably when I'm, when I've read 20 different cases on a particular issue and none of them agree and I still have to come to a conclusion. And that's frustrating. But it's okay. And there's not always a right answer, but there's usually a best answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know that you started out immediately in your career like in a role like this, so that must have been a lot
Yes.
as like a new attorney to be like, "Oh, I get to decide this." That's I don't know. I imagine that that's
Yeah.
a lot in the beginning. I may be wrong on that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a lot in the beginning. I was really lucky to have several good mentors who were very experienced attorneys and who could talk me through things anytime I had questions. So I will say that, regardless of what career you go into as an English major, I do recommend finding, those mentors who are people that you can ask your stupid questions to and ask your questions where you do feel like it's coming, down on two sides, and that will help you and that won't tell you that you're stupid. That was definitely, what got me through starting my career was having those people.
Yeah, thank you. That's good advice for anyone in any path for sure. Like find your mentors and your advocates who will help you explore those questions for sure. What would you say are some of the highlights of your career so far? What have been some of your favorite achievements?
Um, the the very coolest thing in my entire career was when a general in the army gave me a personal coin, which is basically like something that they can give you if you do a good job. So this general thought that I did a great job on something, and he presented me with his own personal coin, that he paid with his own money, and I have it displayed in my office. So that was a really cool thing, and definitely one of the highlights. Other than that, I mean, just the normal things, getting into law school, graduating, getting my first job. Um, all of those things have been highlights. Just now, the highlight of my job is that I have great work life balance. So I think that's really important. I don't think that's something that I was really thinking about when I was, getting ready to graduate from college. But now with a spouse and a 2-year-old and a dog, it's something I think about a lot. So yeah.
And I think that that's important to think about for students is what kind of work-life balance is right for them because everybody's different in what their expectations are, and it's important to include that in your questions as you're talking to your mentors about different career paths. That's great. What career advice would you give to other students who are interested in becoming an attorney?
Well, my number one advice is study very, very hard for the LSATs because people don't realize it, but law schools do give scholarships. And really, the primary thing is a good personal statement. But even more than that, is just having really good LSAT scores. I I ended up taking the LSAT twice. The first time my scores were good. The second time they were fantastic. And the second time I had, so many doors open. I got scholarships to 3 different law schools, and I got half scholarships to multiple others. So that's the number one thing I would say is if you want to do law school, study for the LSAT like a lot. Just because it's worth it. It could save you thousands of dollars. The other thing that I would say is if you go to law school, don't go into it with this expectation that you're going to immediately be making a ton of money, because I definitely know people, in law school that are making, 250,000 a year. And I also know people that have been graduated for a few years and they're making 40,000 a year. And, it's such a cool career path, and it really does open up ways for you to help people. But I would caution people against feeling like they want to go to law school just so they can like make a ton of money, I guess. Because I think there are probably other careers that would set you up as well or better if that's kind of your
If that's your only measuring.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to say like you're only measuring, but I think there are people like that in law school, and I think that a lot of times it doesn't actually work very well for them because they don't feel very inspired by the law and by their career, and it makes it harder for them to find really great jobs and that sort of stuff. Those are both weirdly depressing, but I think those are the best advice I would give.
Well, it's practical advice for considering that because there are a host of different job opportunities that are available to you as an attorney. Like, anyway, what are some of the things that some of the people who graduated with you are doing? Because like I meet attorneys all the time in different industries and I'm like, "Oh, right. I guess it makes sense that there would be an attorney there, but I don't even think about it sometimes."
I mean, so many different things. I mean, anywhere from, the typical being a prosecutor or a public defender or working for a legal assistance office to working in like JD preferred positions as like CFOs of companies. I know quite a few tax lawyers that they're usually accountants who go become lawyers. And I think a lot of them have a lot of fun with that. It seems like they really enjoy that, but there's some really, really interesting tax law jobs that people enjoy. There's intellectual property. So I had a friend who she worked for the artist Pink. She actually was her attorney for her stuff. So that was pretty interesting. There's even lawyers like I mean, just trying to think of like there's so much variety. So basically anything that you think sounds fun and interesting, there's probably a lawyer that's working somewhere for that company. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and for lending your wisdom for current and future students at Marian. I really appreciate it. And I think that this is great advice for others who are considering different career paths, especially with liberal arts degrees, just sampling a lot of different careers through these interviews. So thanks so much, Mallory. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.